ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with the Q&A after Anne has made us experience the whole magical region of Chablis. All to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kriti. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. So my name is Anne Moreau, as just Kriti told you, and I live in Chablis. We own our own domain. It's a family domain. And as Kriti says, my husband, Louis, is a sixth generation. So, but I have the opportunity to talk about it later on. First of all, I want to introduce you to Chablis. Most of you know where Chablis is. So we are the northern part of Bourgogne. We don't say Burgundy anymore. It's really a will from the Bourgogne Wine Board, because Bourgogne is like our family name. So we don't translate our family names. So from now on, we're going to say Bourgogne. Therefore, Chablis is on the northern part of Bourgogne, and we are very close to Champagne, where you attended another webinar a few days before. What makes our area represents 5,600 hectares, all divided within 4 levels of the appellation. And it goes from Petit Chablis, where we have 1,082 hectares. Ooh. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. So Petit Chablis represents 19% of the production. Then you will have the Chablis that covers 3,626 hectares, representing 66% of the production. Then we have the Premier Cru, and they cover 780 hectares. Within them, you have 40 Climat, something that I will explain to you later on. And this represents 14% of the production in Chablis. And lastly, you have the Grand Crus that cover 101 hectares. And it's only one Grand Cru, but 7 Climat again. And that is 1% of the production, of the total production. In Chablis, we have one cooperative called La Chablisienne, and this cooperative produces 25% of the Chablis wines. Then you have 37 negociant houses. So they either buy juices or wine from producers, or they have their own vineyard. And finally, you will have 379 domain, such as Domaine Moreau, for example. Yes, more or less it's the appellation. So I guess that your main question will be about what makes Chablis so unique. And as Kriti was mentioning earlier, it's mainly due to our soil that is it's composed with clays and layers of clay and chalk, and within those subsoil you will find fossilized oysters, because million years ago this area was covered with sea. So Kunal, maybe we could pass on the video, the video I sent to you. I think would be a good idea, so people could. Oh, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay.
It's so a very nice video.
Yeah, I am sharing that video now. So this is a video that Anne has sent to me. Give me a minute to just get that video for you.
Guys, while Kunal is playing the video, and very well said, just a little bit about the soil, and like Anne was telling, it's made of clay, Portlandian clay, Kimberdigan clay, and most importantly, many thousands and thousands of years back, where Chablis was sea. So that's why a lot of minerality in the wines. There's a lot of fossilization is there, and hence we taste a lot of steely minerality. And I'm sure Anne would tell us more about it when we talk more. Kunal, yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you read it? Yeah.
Is there a voice? Can you? There's no voice. Okay.
No, there's
No.
Okay. Let me try it again. 1 second.
and you know how they say that
The
when you're
Chablis
taking
wine growing
from
region is located in France, at the
Sound now?
north of the Bourgogne region in the Yonne department. When the region was covered by the sea, it was then
Yes,
that the
yes.
unique Kimmeridgian soil of the Chablis region was laid down, recognizable by the tiny oyster fossils it contains. Vines were first introduced in Chablis by the Romans between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. From the 12th century onwards, Cistercian monks of the Abbey of Pontigny, the second of the 4 daughter houses of the Citeaux Abbey, ensured the region prospered. Thanks to its proximity to Paris, accessible by the Yonne River from the town of Auxerre, Chablis wines were soon a regular feature on the tables of the kings of France and went on to conquer Europe, soon establishing a global reputation. Chablis wines are simple. They're made from a single varietal, the Chardonnay grape. They are always white, and they come in 4 appellations. Petit Chablis, with almost 1,000 hectares planted on the plateaus. Chablis, covering the biggest surface area, with 3,500 hectares. Chablis Premier Cru, on favorable slopes, with around 800 hectares. And lastly, Chablis Grand Cru, grown on one single hill, with the very best orientation, and covering just 100 hectares. The Chablis region is crossed from south to north by the river Serein, which flows into the Yonne. The river and its tributaries have carved out valleys and hills, and the climat of the Chablis region sit on either side, on these slopes that are so well suited to wine growing. But what is a climat? A climat is a specific terroir that offers a subtle balance between aspect, varietal, slope, altitude, and soil type. Each climat has its own identity that is expressed through the grapes that grow there. Vaux, Val, Mont, Côte. One just needs to read the wine labels to see that the local geography is often behind the names of the climat. On the left bank, in little valleys perpendicular to the Serein, some 24 climats are located, mostly facing east or southeast. The most famous of them are Vaillon and Montmain. But there are also Forêt, Bouteaux, Les Beauregards, Bourrois, Côte de l'Éché, Vaux-de-Vey, one of the most steeply sloping climats, Vaux-Ligneaux, and Vosgou. On the right bank, there are 16 Chablis Premier Cru climats, the most famous of which are Fourchaume, Mont-de-Milieu, and Montée de Tonnerre. Other less well-known Premier Cru climats include Les Fourneaux and Vaucoupin. And lastly, on a slope below the village of Chablis, the Chablis Grand Cru appellation is grown on 7 climats, with, from east to west, Blanchot, Les Clos, Valmur, Grenouille, Vaudésir, Preuze, and lastly, Bougros. In all, almost 100 hectares enjoy this exceptional location. Today, this little wine-growing region produces around 40 million bottles, of which almost 2/3 are exported. Each climat provides white wines of great purity. And as you explore the footpaths that wind their way through the vineyards, you too will understand what makes Chablis wines so elegant, rich, and diverse.
Okay, that was brilliant. I think that showed a lot of different kind of parcels of Chablis and what different climas, Grand Crus and Premier Crus. So I just want to, before we start, just after this video, I was at Anne's place. I was at Domaine Louis Moreau in 2015, and I vividly remember one thing which I'll never probably forget in my entire life, because I had read till then. How much sunshine, how much sun plays a role on various, plots, and what the slope of that particular plot does to the wine and to the grape, it's the quality of the grape. And sometimes in countries like India, we sort of ignore the fact ignore the fact of how important the sun is, because we've got so much sunshine. But then in certain parts of the world, like Champagne and of course in Chablis, sun plays a very important role. And that's where these slopes come in place. I remember very correctly, Anne showed us a map, which we're going to do it, which Anne will just show you right now. So this was the map. This was the map that Anne, and I'm never going to forget this. So this is a 3D map of Chablis. Okay,
I'm not sure you can see it, but
yes, we can. Yeah. So this is a 3D map of Chablis, and what Anne did was very cleverly. She took a flashlight, a mobile flashlight, and went from east to west on the map. And it was really surprising. Oh, there you go. So, but it's
you have to be there.
So you have to, and it's got to be a dark room. So what you see, the first light that shines are generally going to be the better sites, the Grand Crus and the Premier Crus. Mm-hmm. And the second light that shines on the map is going to be the Chablis, and the last one would be Petit Chablis probably. So this sort of image has struck in my mind so clearly that I'll never forget it anymore, as to what importance the sun and the slope has in a place like Chablis, and for world of wine, as a matter of fact. I'm sorry, Anne, I went on there. Please go ahead.
It's perfect. Yeah, well, I was about to tell you that. The thing is, for us, it's so important to be, the soil, as Kriti was explaining earlier, we have layers of clay and chalk, and it gives this, and molds that give this richness to the wines. And also it's composed with all these fossilized oysters that gives this minerality and this kind almost of iodine notes that you will find in the Chablis. What I'm going to do now is show you, if I can, share the maps I showed you earlier. Can you see them? Okay, let's do that. Yeah. So we're going to start with the Petit Chablis. And so, as we saw in the video earlier, the Petit Chablis parcels tend to be around the appellation. Most of the time, it's on the top of the hills, on a quite sandy soil. So the Petit Chablis wines will be mainly fruity, very aromatic, very fresh, but you will not find in it this very mineral and oyster shell almost expression that you will find in the Chablis. On the contrary, when you go to Chablis by itself, this is when you tend to have this Kimmeridgian soil that is so unique in Chablis. Because after all around the world, you will find a Chardonnay grape planted, but it's only in Chablis, and due to this subsoil that you will get this minerality, purity, very long length and very fresh expression. And this is because of the soil once again. So you see all the Chablis are mainly on slopes, and are covering the full appellation. And then you will go to Premier Cru, and as it was said earlier, it's roughly a little less than 800 hectares. So this is where we're going to enter into the climat expression, or climat meaning. And for us, as I was explaining to Kriti earlier, in Bourgogne, climat doesn't mean because when people in France say talk about climat, they tend to look up at the sky, because we expect that climat will be either raining or cloudy or sunny. But in the contrary, in Bourgogne, when we talk about climat, we look down to our feet because the climat is the parcel or the place where we are standing up. And so a climat is a very specific parcel, plot of land that has been given a name, and which is climat, as we saw in the video. And so in Chablis, for example, we have 40 climat designated as premier cru, but only 20 of them are known, because you can have under the same more famous name like Vaillon, for example, what we will call it an umbrella, umbrella climat. Underneath this one, where you will have Roncière, Châtain, 3 or 4 different names that are also climat, but lesser known compared to Vaillon. So that's why we say that we have 20 climat in Chablis that are very famous and renowned. But Kriti, you are right. In Bourgogne, we have more than 44 climat, I think, as premier cru, of course. And then we have 33 climat in Grand Cru. But that's another story. It's another story, if I can say.
Yes. And may I request you if you could just, are we clear to understand that Chablis is all the appellations are based on the fact that Petit Chablis is on the base? Higher you go, more better it gets. So is it safe to say that Grand Cru is on the top?
You're right. It's exactly. Okay. Absolutely. We can say, if we look at it's like a pyramid. If you look at the Chablis appellation, it's a pyramid, and so at the bottom you will have the Petit Chablis, as you say, even though it's not the most important superficie, because we've seen that it's 1,082 hectares in total compared to 3,000 for Chablis village, but still Petit Chablis will be the basis. That's it's a nice way to enter into the appellation, if I can say, because that will give you wine that are very fresh, again aromatic, very fruity, simple and very affordable to understand and to appreciate. Then you go up to the second level, that will be the Chablis village. And on this one, you tend to enter into this very specific minerality expression, oyster shell notes, something a little bit maybe drier, more complex compared to Petit Chablis. That's a Chablis. And on this one, you are on the second level of the pyramid. And then you go up to the third level, that will be the premier cru. And then this is when you enter into the climat specificities. And as it was explaining in the video, when we talk about premier cru in Chablis, we mention either it's a left bank or right bank premier cru, because as you see on the map, we have a river called Le Serein that goes all the way from up north to down south, crossing all in between Chablis, right in the middle of Chablis. And actually it's crossing right in the middle of the Chablis village, but also in the Chablis appellation. And the parcels or the premier parcels that are on the left bank of the river Serein tend to have an east and southeast exposure to the sun, what Kunal was explaining earlier, which is very important for us. So the left bank tend to be premier cru with more earthy expression, something very terroir and very mineral long length, when the right bank premier cru tend to be a little bit more warmer, rounder, because they get the south exposure to the sun, or southwest, and therefore they have riper grapes, and so you have maybe more opulent and more open wine somewhere. Okay. Yes, right. Right. Especially if you moreover, if you do the process of vinification and aging in oak, what happens sometimes in some domains, you will get even more roundness in your wines. So for us, it's important to know also when you talk about the premier cru, it's always interesting to know if it comes from either the left bank or the right bank of the river. And
suddenly I thought we traveled to Bordeaux, left bank and right bank.
Yes, well, almost. No. We're still in Chablis. No worries, because the different forests compared to Bordeaux, it's nice. I mean, it's funny that you talk about it. In Bourgogne, it is the terroir, and it is a parcel that determines the level of the wine, the quality of the wine.
Absolutely.
When in Bordeaux, it's the chateau.
The chateau. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So if I could just touch on this for
Please.
our people, ladies and gentlemen, as Anne said, it's very, very important for us to know the appellations that we get in, you know, what we talk about Grand Cru, Premier Cru in Bordeaux is different from Burgundy. Like Anne said, in Bordeaux, the appellation is given to a chateau, the producer, and in Burgundy the appellation is given to the land where the grapes
Absolutely.
grow. So there are places in Burgundy, like one small plot of land is owned by 11 different producers, and they make a Grand Cru
Absolutely.
wine. And
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, there are few producers in Burgundy who have 0.05 hectares, which makes
Yes,
just
I
about 50
agree.
bottles of wine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're totally right. It's just, yeah, that's what makes the Bourgogne so nice. Sometimes quite difficult to understand for people, because it's like a mosaics. You know, you tend to have so many little tiny places and plots and so on. I agree with you. But it's the beauty of it after all, and somewhere that what
I like
makes
how
us
you I like
humble.
the way you said that. I like the way you said it's the beauty, whereas we feel that it's confusing.
Yes, right. Okay. So that, because at some point you don't have to understand too much, just appreciate what you're having in your glass, you know?
Absolutely.
At some point it's not a question only to know about it, it's just to appreciate it. What at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, it's what we will return. And somewhere I think it shows humility. The fact that it's the land that gives you this premier cru aspect or quality. It's not, of course, it's important the work of the winemaker as well. But first of
Sure.
all, it's the land where you have your vineyard. So it's again, I think it's humility.
And it's and just to add on to this is that because in Burgundy, you know, at a particular plot of land can have several owners. So you know, you can have a Grand Cru Leclos, for example, can come in a particular vintage by multiple producers. So you can have Leclos from X, Y, Z. You know, you can have many.
Of course.
Same Grand Cru or Premier Cru coming from various producers. So that's sort of unique about this region. That's you know, made a lot of people fall in love in this region, which is not the case in Bordeaux quite much.
No, I agree with you. And for example, when you mentioned Les Clos, and actually Les Clos are 26 hectares, which makes it the biggest. Oh, we're going to finish with my map so we can see the Grand Cru.
Yeah.
Somewhere we don't see them much, but yeah, there are 7 of them. And actually, Les Clos is the biggest one, 26 hectares over the 101 hectares in total. And I think there are 34 proprietors. So as you say, Kriti, some of them will get like 2 rows of vineyard. Other will be lucky having 1 hectare, 2 hectares, even 3, like we are. Luckily, we have 3 hectares of Les Clos, which allow us to produce a little bit more. But and sometimes producers or owners of the land.
Speaking of Les Clos, this is from your which I finished. I couldn't wait. Okay. I finished it some time ago.
Okay, which vintage was that?
That's 2010, I think. That's 2010, yeah.
Yeah, lucky. 10 was a beautiful.
I've got a Blanchot as well, which I'll probably open.
Well, on this one, for example, Blanchot, we produce 600 bottles per year because we have 0.4 hectares, so that's very small, but that's very specific to Bourgogne, yes, as you say.
Yes.
So yes, that's about it. I mean, the 7 Grand Crus, and so what make one clos different from the other will be obviously the winemaking and the importance of the domain, or I mean, at least the winemaker will give its its print on the wine you will produce. And so yeah, obviously you tend to see this. It's like a backbone, when a domain tends to produce the 4 labels of the appellation or different Petit Chablis, for example, Petit Chablis and Chablis and Premier Cru, you tend to see the signature of the winemaker in the way the wines are made. So that's what makes Bourgogne so unique, because you will recognize the wines on the way they've been vinified and aged by the proprietor, by the producer. So,
Perfect. Perfect. Excellent.
good.
So moving on.
Yes.
Yes. Also, ladies and gentlemen, one thing that we need to be very clear about is that anywhere in the world, when you hear the expression that I love having white Burgundies, please remember it is always a Chablis. It's not a Côte d'Or, it's not a Batal Montrachet, it's not a Puy Fusé. It'll always be a Chablis. So that is something that Chablis is so important to Burgundy or Bourgogne, that if ever you enjoy having white Burgundies, or if any of the people, if you guys work in hotels, you'll see a lot of hotel wine menus will write white Burgundy. That will always be a Chablis. It cannot be any other part of Burgundy. That's how important white or Chablis wines are.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have questions so far? Maybe if we can make a question and answer. Maybe.
Excuse
what
me.
do you think?
Yeah, Sushma here. Where there is no mention of how is the flow of the river, which is the right bank and the left bank. We are not coming to know anything on the map, please.
Well, actually, yeah. The thing is, on this map, you have the Premier Cru, and so this is, do you see it on the map? This is all the Premier Crus on what we call the left bank, and these are the right bank. And for example, Vaillon are in this valley. This, this big one is Vaillon, as I was mentioning earlier, where we will find different clima underneath the umbrella name as Vaillon, but we will have different parcels, and each one has a specific name. So
if I could just add to what, if I could just add to what Anne is saying, Sushma, what happens is that there's actually no mention of left and right bank in particular, unless you really go and search for it.
Yeah.
Chablis is such a dynamic region on its own. For you to understand this in details, you'll have to probably read the map more and more and more for you to understand that, oh, okay, this is left bank. Like Anne mentioned about the fact that left bank, which is a west facing and east facing slopes, how will the difference be? It has got to do with the sun rising, like sun rises from the east to the west. So the first east gets a little more sunlight than the west, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so then actually, it gets way more sunlight.
Now,
please go on.
Now the thing is, the east-facing parcels, as you say, Kriti, that tend to be on the left bank, they get a morning sun, so a cooler sun. This is why you tend to get more earthy expression, maybe more minerality, more tension, compared with the one that gets this west, so south and west, the warmer sun, and then end of the day sun, which is warmer again. This will give you more power in the wines, maybe more structure sometimes, and that will make them rounder. This is why we tend to talk about left bank and right bank. Kriti is perfectly right when she said that you will have to go reading where it comes from and everything. That will give you more knowledge about it. But you are right. Nowhere on the label we can write it's left bank or right bank. Sometimes people will maybe mention it on the back label. But besides that, no, it's you to discover actually where it comes from. So.
That's the world of wine, you to discover it always.
Right, exactly.
Always changing, always dynamic, huh?
Yeah, and we've got a very interesting question from Jishnu Jeet, who's asking how the producers ensure that mineral content and characteristics of soil is maintained after so much of cultivation.
Oh, well, I guess that because we don't, we don't intervene a lot in the subsoil. We cannot do nothing specific. So it really comes Obviously, the older the vine will become, maybe more complexity and more expression that will bring to the juices and then to the wines.
Absolutely.
Now what we tend to do is, we as you say earlier, and I was happy that you mentioned it, we are very into a sustainable way of farming, and more people do that because we understand that the expression of the wines will come from the soil. So it's really, really important for us to protect our soil, our terroir, and to make sure that we don't use chemical products and everything. So it's really, a respect of our land and of our terroir.
Perfect. Excellent. I don't think we have any more questions right now, and you may please proceed in case we have any. Yes, Abik, one question we'll take.
Yep. So I was like wondering, like, as the laws of French wine are very tight, so is there any new contemporary trade or winemaking practices that are coming up that involves in Chablis?
I don't really understand what your question. What do you mean?
Abik, are you talking about any new practices, or are you talking
Yes,
about?
yes. That is like being adopted right now for winemaking or trade, because
Okay,
as
so and I think what Abhik's trying to ask is, are there any new practices that are being incorporated in Bourgogne, perhaps, or which are newer in the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years?
Honestly,
don't-
in the way that you want, Abik, you want to know if it's imposed to us or if it's just a way we are evolving to a new way of farming.
I think his question is more towards evolving.
Yeah.
Say it again?
More towards evolving.
Oh, yeah, I think that we're more and more going towards biological farming. We call it organic, because obviously being up north of France, it's very tricky for it to be 100% biological because, the weather is very tricky. We tend to have very cold winters. For example, today you won't see it probably by my window, but it's snowing outside. So it's important for us to have this 4 seasons, very cold winter and then very warm summer, but we also tend to have a very wetty spring. And so we need to be able to protect the vines, So, but more and more we are going towards organic farming and probably biological farming as well, because again, we need to protect the ground, and we need to make sure that we will pass it on to our new generations, and within many years. Beside that, having said that, I agree with you. In France, they are impeaching, and forbidding us to use, for example, glyphosate and more products. So it's becoming difficult, maybe, but at some point, I think it's good for the future. So we have to adapt, and the thing is, we also notice that global warming is affecting the way we farm the vineyards, because we use less protection against some diseases, but at the same time, we tend to have the vines are flowering sooner compared to 20 years ago, for example. And so we need to fight, for example, against what we call the spring frost, by mid-April to mid-May. It can be devastating for us, because since the winters tend to be a little milder, the vines again bloom earlier, so earlier compared to 20 years ago. And so now when the spring frost starts, sometimes it can burn the full vineyard, and so we lose part of our production.
And for the vintage 2020, when did the harvest begin and when did it finish?
I mean, this year we started harvesting by August 27th, which is
early.
the earliest ever. I mean, when I arrived in Chablis, because just for the small story before I will explain Domaine with Moreau, but I was not born in Chablis. I'm from southwest of France. But anyway, when I came in here 25 years ago, we used to harvest in October, like 5th of October. That was the normality. And then, you know, the more we went into the years, the sooner we started harvesting. And this year was just the earliest ever.
Very early.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Champagne
But-
as well, I mean, that's what David as well told us last time. They started very early. They started in 21st to 22nd August, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, even
That's
sooner than
very,
us.
very early.
Yeah,
Very early.
definitely.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, vintage 2020 will be very classic vintage, though.
Yeah.
We have this because we started earlier in order to maintain this minerality and freshness, you know. So it's all the process was earlier. I mean, it started blooming earlier. We got the flower earlier, so and so on and so on. So that was natural and normal to start harvesting in end of August. And luckily, we will have a very nice, very classic vintage though. Small quantity because we got a lot of heat in July. And so some grapes tended to be, you know, even dried because of the sun and the heat. But beside that, it will be a very classic vintage, more classic compared to a 2016, for example. That was very round and very, very aromatic, but somehow lacking of this tension and again minerality that you expect from a Chablis wine.
Yeah.
So,
and Abhi, just to add to what Anne said, traditionally Chablis wines were always made. It's not a rule, it's not a law, but traditionally Chablis was always made in an unoaked style, as compared to Côte d'Or or Marquenois, Chardonnay. However, with the changing times, Grand Cru wines have now, so I was talking to a few winemakers about 2 years back, maybe, they started giving their wines a bit of a interaction with the oak, very less as compared to the others. So this is one thing to answer your question, traditionally, which never used to happen, but now is happening, is a bit of oakiness. They cannot put a lot of oak to the wines, reason being of two things. One, Chablis is known for a steely, crispy character. Second is a lot of oak does not complement the soil, which is chalk, which is clay, which is proud to be of its crispiness. So, but this is one change that we've started seeing, like, you know, a lot of these Grand Cru, Blanchot, Valmore, Bogro. I'm sorry, and for my pronunciation.
No, perfect. That's perfect. You said very well. Very good.
So these are few wines which have started seeing some interaction of oak.
Yes.
I believe like the oak has the tendency of adding sweetness, even that can affect the dryness of the wine. Is it correct?
Yes, and it's not sweetness. It's just that somehow we say that you will note vanilla notes, almost creaminess also. And in this way, I agree with this. It comes from the oak. Somewhere the oak can give you some structure to the wine. In the past, we used to use oak only for our Grand Crus. We used to do the aging only in oak, all the rest being in stainless steel tank. We stopped since vintage 2018, all our Grand Crus are only in stainless steel because we want to keep this freshness. And I totally agree with Kriti. Oak is not something very usual for Chablis because you're going to lose this minerality and tension because, as you say, it gives more roundness to the wine. And in some vintages, when it was very strong in alcohol and everything, the oak would give it like a more shape. So somewhere it was good, but you have to be very careful with it. So, and we don't want to do, as you say earlier, we don't want to do a Moraché or Bata-Moraché. We are making Chablis wines.
And that's the uniqueness of Chablis is the purity of the Chardonnay. I mean, you might have Chardonnay. You have Chardonnay pretty much everywhere in the world, in every making, but the purity of the reflection of what Chardonnay gives you here in Chablis cannot be replicated anywhere in the world. It's the uniqueness of the terroir that Chablis has. It's the history of centuries of history of the winemakers there, and the expression that Chardonnay gives in Chablis cannot be replicated. So, as you've just mentioning, Abhi, you said what is the difference, and the difference nowadays evolving is a little bit of oak, but traditionally Chablis was never oaked, purely because of the fact that the purity of Chardonnay can get a little masked by the interaction of oak. But as things are changing and the vintages are changing, winemakers are trying new things, and it is getting. I'm not sure what kind of response it is getting, but in my opinion, it's not had any negative impacts to the wine at all. But traditionally, Chablis was never oaked.
Absolutely.
And I have one last but
Yeah,
not the
please.
least question. It's like the different categories and the different regions you have. You must be looking for specific type of, specific amount of ripeness and sugar, or it's like the
Yeah, right.
same
You're
for.
right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For example, on Petit Chablis, you can your juice or the grapes will be ready to be harvested. You raise 10 degrees of sugar in it, or alcohol. That was the minimum. And for Chablis, it's 12, from 11.5 to 12, but 12 tend to be the average that we look for. And then, of course, the upper you go, as you say, the higher it goes. So, for example, the Premier Cru will be from 12.5 alcohol content up to 13. In 2019, we get up to 13.5, but we also tend to restrain it because we don't want to have too alcoholic wine. It gives them it tends to make your wine a little bit too heavy, so we tend to keep, in order to keep this freshness, we try to get 12.5 alcohol content will be the good average, if I may say.
It's like balancing everything.
Exactly, absolutely. For the Grand Cru, we will be around 13. 13 will be not the minimum, but the rule, or the norm, if I can say.
Yeah.
And 13 and upper. But because Grand Cru tends to be stronger wines, with more body, more more expression probably. But as you say, it's a balance, and you have to be very careful with that too.
That's what I was curious about, because till now I didn't have any Chablis that didn't impress me. So like anything I had, I always had a perfect balance in the wine.
Good.
I found a perfect balance in the wine. Maybe it's my luck, but that's why I thought so there must be something regarding the sugar content and ripeness.
And oh, my pleasure. It's a very good question.
Great. So please tell us more about the Moreau family wines. Now we're all very, very excited about it.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So maybe, or Kunal, do you want me to put the other presentation I sent to you? Kunal?
Do you want me to share
I
this?
can do it if you want. I can do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. As well.
Yep.
So maybe it's going to be easier if I do it. Okay, right. Okay, let's do that and that. Okay, here we go. So that's a family story. Can you say it properly? I'm going to try to do it not too fast, but so.
We can see it. We can see it.
Oh, wait a minute. Diaporama. Voila. So yeah, let's go to the Chablis. So that's the village of Chablis. Voila. But Kriti, do you ever come to Chablis?
No, I've been to Bordeaux, Champagne, Cognac. Oh. Kunal didn't take me with him.
He has to, but now we are invited.
That's a date. It's a date, Kriti. We'll go together. Don't worry.
Okay, perfect. I'm waiting for you guys. So that's Chablis seen from the Grand Cru parcel, Les Clos, more precisely. So this is our family house. So just to resume, Chablis, Domaine Moreau is named after my husband, Louis, who represents the 6th generation, but is the first Moreau came to Chablis was in 1814, and his name was Joseph, as you can see here on the name. He was a copper. He was making barrels, and he was coming from not far away from here, and he married a girl located, I mean, a Chablisian girl, and in her dot, she brought land of Chablis. More precisely, les Vaillons that were first in the wedding contract, if I can say. And since then, they've been buying land either from weddings or just buying land by getting more and more. And they were negotiants. They were buying also grapes and producing their own vineyard.
Right.
So this is
if I could just one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if I would, we may not remember everybody's name. Can we go on that slide once again, please?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Like we may not remember everybody's name, but you see that this sixth generation, like the generations have passed on the whole concept of making wines. And how I fell in love with wines is not just wine. It's about the magic, the passion, the romance, the story, the family. Like looking at this family tree only, I feel I'm already in love with wines once again, is because 6 generations, your father's father. It's like Mughal history, Akbar and then Babur, then Humayun, then Akbar, and then this is how they've made wine. It's just magical for me. I mean, oh wow,
we are very lucky.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I feel very lucky being part of it, because when I entered the family, it was not only the family, but I mean, I married the full package. So the domain, the vineyard, and everything. And for me, it was just obvious working in here. So I think it was great. So you can see that the little boy on the barrel is Louis' grandfather, actually. So and unfortunately, I never met him, but we knew him a little. He died pretty young, and Louis was like 2 years old or something. But I mean, this is his grandfather. So I think it's a nice photo. I like this one, so we can see all of them. And as you see on the map, we own vineyards within Petit Chablis, the 4 levels of the appellation, actually. We own Petit Chablis, we own Chablis, both on the village of Ben on the left of the photo, but also within Chablis, around here, and near Fleury as well, just after the Grand Crus. We own 3 different premier crus, Voligno, Vaillon, and Les Fourneaux. So Vaillon and Voligno are on the left bank of the river, and then Les Fourneaux is on the right bank. And last, we own parcel within 4 Grand Crus, Les Clos, Valmur, Vaudésir, Blanchot, and we own a monopole. Kriti, you were talking about it earlier, called Clos des Hospices dans les Clos. It's a family monopole since 1904. The parcel was bought by Louis' great-grandfather to the monks of Chablis. At that time, there were monks in Chablis, and they were owning this land, and Louis' grandfather bought it to the monk. And since then, we've been producing Clos des Hospices. This is our.
Okay. And just a quick this question I had is I'm not sure about this. So obviously Louis Moreau makes the you produce Petit Chablis, Chablis, Premier Cru, Grand Cru, all the entire range. I'm not sure whether this is a common feature for all the producers in Chablis, because I don't think everybody makes the entire range.
No, absolutely right. You can have maybe, I don't know, above the 370 something domains, maybe 50 of them will have a full range. Most of the time, people will have either some Petit Chablis, which is very common, and then some Premier Cru. Others will only have Chablis. But again, because of this 6th generation and more than 200 years history, we are lucky enough to get so many parcels from the 4 levels, because nowadays it's almost impossible to buy land. I mean, everything belongs to someone, so it's quite difficult to acquire land. But because of this long history, each generation has been buying land. So that's why nowadays we are able to propose the full range of the appellations. So yeah, it's tradition in modernity. And this is something that's on the top of our entrance door, because it's in the family. So that's Louis, the 6th generation. Louis, for the record, studied in the US for 4 years, and then he worked there during 4 more years. So he had a very yeah, modern, I would say, background and way of making one as well. So when he came back in 1994 and he took after his father, he did a very good combination between modern studies and all the tradition of the family tradition. Because his father taught him a lot as well. But I mean, at some point he did a mix of both of them. So we have the best of two worlds, I would, if I can say, somewhere. Very proud of it.
And
So that's our
surely,
Petit
Mr. Louis Moreau, for a winemaker, he's a very good-looking winemaker.
Yes, thank you. I agree. You know what? His mother was from Norway, so he's very tall, which is not very common in Bourgogne. He's very tall, blue eyes, and yeah, because of my mother-in-law was Norwegian. So but his father is 100% Bourgogne guy. So we have Petit Chablis, and as I will explain to you, it comes from the outside, so very fresh, very crispy, easy drinking, very affordable wines. It's a nice way to get into the appellations, I would say. For somebody who don't know much about Chablis, starting with the Petit Chablis wines, you will never be disappointed, because you will get freshness, fruitiness, and again this good balance from Chablis wines. Oops, sorry. So then we have the Chablis and Premier Cru Voligno. I will pass on very quickly because it's not, I think, the most important for you guys to know. But so then we have Les Fourneaux, which is again from the right bank of the river, and Vaillon, which is our most famous Premier Cru. And on this one, we only do stainless steel tank for both all vinification and aging. In our case, it's done with a stainless steel tank. We do all the Premier Cru and Grand Cru are farmed organically. We are certified HEV, high environmental value, which is a kind of a new certificate that will be established, I would say, like 5 years ago, and more domains in France go on this certification. It shows that you do organic farming and you have very strict rule, not only into the vineyard, but also in the cellar. So, and we are thinking in going to biological for some of the vineyard. So it's a long process, but we do believe that it's important for the future. So then we have Les Clos, Grand Cru, also not only stainless steel tank, Valmure, Vos Désirs, Blanchot, and with 600 bottles produced per year. And then Les Clos des Hospices, the famous monopole. That it is at the bottom of Les Clos. And we have another monopole, I mean, not as Domaine Moreau, but in Chablis, there is another monopole very famous that it's called La Moutonne. Maybe you heard of it?
La Moutonne.
Yes.
La Moutonne, which is Vos Désirs and La Pruisse.
Yes, absolutely. It's in the between, on the top of it. That belongs to Long de Paquis. And this is where we are exported. I mean, we export 80% of our production, actually, which is a lot. But you see, for example, right now, due to the pandemic, all the French market has been stopped because all restaurants are closed. Only the wine shops work a little bit, but it's very difficult. And luckily, since we are exporting a lot, we keep working because we are that keep buying wine. So it's important. It was important for us. Oh, this is a great thing. Anyway, so that's mainly we produce. You see, we sell 58% in Chablis, 25% of our production is in Petit Chablis, 15% it's in Premier Cru, and 2% of our production is in Grand Cru.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's, I think, what is important for us. Yes, it's as the savoir-faire, and as we were saying earlier, the fact that we benefit from. Oh, do you see the red things on the screen? That's surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Please.
Somebody's. Okay. If I stop that, let's see what's going to happen. Okay.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. But anyway, that's about almost what I wanted to say.
So the maximum production is of course Chablis. When you export it, is the export also the Chablis that gets exported more, or is it it's random?
Oh yes, roughly. No. Absolutely. Well, it depends on the countries. For example, Sweden or Norway, they will. They will buy a lot of Petit Chablis and Chablis, but they do a smaller part of Premier Cru and Grand Cru. In comparison, Singapore, it's more balanced. They don't buy any Petit Chablis, for example. They do a lot of Chablis, but also a lot of Premier Cru and some Grand Cru. But roughly, it reflects our production. The volumes we produce are equally, if I can say, exported in the countries where we work with.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting to know. So, guys, I think one thing that when Anne was going through her different kinds of wines that the Domaine produces, one thing I don't know how many of you noticed or not, because that's very, very important for Chablis, is that was the third line which said 100% Chardonnay. Okay. Chablis is always going to be 100% Chardonnay. It's 100% Chardonnay. Okay, there is no blending involved in Chablis. So once you see on a label when you see it on a label, whether Petit Chablis, Chablis, a Premier Cru or Grand Cru, it is going to be 100% Chardonnay. It's the purest, in my opinion. That's just a personal opinion. In my opinion, that a lot of people do agree with that. That is definitely the purest expression of Chardonnay anywhere in the world. And as I said before, you'll see Chardonnay in pretty much everywhere now, even in India as well. But when you talk about France, you see Chardonnay in Champagne, you see Chardonnay, of course, in Chablis, you see Chardonnay in the entire Burgundy region down to Mâconnais as well, and the rest of the country. And Chardonnay produced in the rest of the France is going to be different from Chablis for sure. It is not the same expression of Chardonnay. What Chardonnay it gets produced and made in Chablis, primarily because of perhaps the primarily because of the terroir, as we discussed, and the soil, which is very important and very unique to this region, which is Cambrian clay. Anne, would you like to tell us a little bit about the soil? Because I believe that Petit Chablis are on the sites which are Portlandian and not Cambrian.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Well, as you said, Petit Chablis, and as we saw earlier on the map, tend to be on the upper parts of the slopes, and they tend to be on a more sandy soil again. So you will not get as much Chimay region. It's more Portlandian because it's a younger soil, if I may say. Even though Chimay region was 3 million years ago, Portlandian will be a little bit younger, and again, mainly with sand. And so this will enhance more the fruity side of the grapes compared to a Chimay region soil with all the calcareous, where we will get all this minerality and tension. And this is why most of the Petit Chablis, and if we recall why it is called Petit Chablis, maybe it's a good question to answer. You have to know that the classification from which land will be Chablis, Premier Cru and Grand Cru, it dates back from 1938. And so at that time, there were only 3 levels. There were Chablis, then Premier Cru, when they officially classified into Premier Cru and parceled, and the Lieu-dit and the Climat that we've seen earlier, and then the Grand Cru appellation. But after a few years, some proprietors came to the INAO, which is the French government or the French administration ruling the wines classification. They came back to this administration saying, look, we have land that are around the Chablis appellation and that could fit into it because it's planted with Chardonnay and it could be included into the Chablis appellation. And they didn't want to increase at once the Chablis level. This is why they created the Petit Chablis, and mainly because the soil was less chimerigen. And so this is when they decided to create Petit Chablis back in 1944, I think it was.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I think it's important, it's always funny to know that it's not that far away. It's not that long ago. It's only 80 years ago. So for many, many years, this land was not included. This is why if you read books older than 1934 or 1940, you will not see Petit Chablis anywhere because it didn't exist at that time. And so, yeah, and so the more you go to the center of Chablis, being Chablis appellation, but also the Chablis village, this is where you get all the richer land and subsoil and terroir. And this is why you have all the Grand Crus are concentrated in the same area. And furthermore, the classification of a plot of land as a premier cru appellation, the last ones were classified in 1979, which is not that long ago either. But no land will go up from premier cru to grand cru. This is forbidden. I mean, they have been classified back in 1938, and there will not be more premier cru, grand cru, sorry. But on the contrary, you still have some parcels that went from Chablis to premier cru. Yeah, the latest one being in 1979. So it always evolves, you know.
Excellent. Like we started and we said that Burgundy has many appellations,
Yes.
let alone Chablis itself. And Kunal said, I don't want to confuse anyone, but I love putting bounces to our audience, and they should actually read something more about it. Kunal very well said that the Chablis appellation is 100% Chardonnay.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
However, Chablis region makes another white grape called Sauvignon Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc,
And
absolutely.
the appellation for that is different, which is, it's actually Saint-Brie.
Saint-Brie. Oui, Sauvignon de
Yeah.
Saint-Brie. Sauvignon de
Yeah,
Saint-Brie, exactly.
Saint-Brie.
It's about 25 kilometers away from Chablis, and you're right, that's the only place where you can find Sauvignon. Sauvignon being much more used, you know, in the Valley Loire and where you find this, it's more like cassis, blackcurrant
Yes.
taste and smell or
herbaceous cut grass, very steely character. Yeah, absolutely. So please never get confused between Chablis as a region has Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay, but Chablis as an appellation, it only allows 100% Chardonnay. So that's very important to know for us.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow, you should not feel that, oh, you know what, my friends got me a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from Chardonnay. It's a fake wine. It isn't. It's not made in China. It is very well made in France itself.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's important to remember we are not allowed to do blends. It's forbidden. You also have some Bourgogne Aligoté around Chablis, not within the Chablis appellation as well. It's considered as a regional appellation, and it's based. I mean, it's made with Aligoté, which is also a grape varietal. Yes, absolutely. And then you will get some Pinot called Irancy and Pinot Noir. Yes, they do Irancy. Yes, which is quite close from Chablis as well.
Absolutely.
So,
guys, be open to questions. Come on, shoot your questions. We don't want to bore Anne with Kunal and my questions. So feel free to write questions on the chat box. Till then, while we are reading your questions, probably I'm going to ask Anne a few more questions from all of our side. The most important question, do people from Chablis have a lot of Dijon mustard?
Yes. Yeah, we love it. We use it a lot, even though it's difficult, you know, to combine the mustard with the chipotle. I agree, but no, we like it. I mean, it's not far away from us. It's still the same area, you know. It's Do you like the Dijon mustard?
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I asked Anne about Dijon mustard is because all over the world, one of the finest grainy mustard comes from the region called Dijon, and it is very near to the Chablis region. I think very, very near. It's again in the north of Burgundy. Although, there is a very famous say, what grows together goes together. However, I don't think it can go with this one. Dijon
I
mustard
agree.
definitely cannot go very well with Chablis wines,
No,
but
I
it's a
agree.
fantastic, yeah. Yes,
So I was
yes.
reading on Wine Bible that there is a trend going on in the local artisan mustard shop. Like they, instead of vinegar, they're using fermented grape juice for making mustard. Is it true?
Yeah,
Could
can
be
do that
very
too.
well. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And coming to the food part, like I was going to ask you, like I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, like escorgatse
Escargot.
bourguignon,
Mhm.
the snail cooked in,
Snails.
Yes.
yeah,
Escargot.
Snail.
yeah,
Abik, you
escargot.
need to watch. Abik, you need to watch Pretty Woman movie.
Okay.
Where Julia Roberts does that.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So
Okay.
my question
So
was like, from your
I've
portfolio, which wine will you choose to cook snails? Like snails grow so abundant, and it's like one of the famous dish from France.
Well,
Cook
you know
or
what? I think
pair.
escargot. Say it again.
No, they use wine for cooking snails.
Oh,
If I'm not wrong.
well, for cooking, in that case, actually, the escargot, they are cooked with
I wouldn't use
butter.
Chablis to cook anything really. I
Well,
wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would never
yes,
Prefer to
cook
drink.
with
yes, I
it.
have. Yes,
I
I
would
have
use
one.
it to
I have
drink.
one.
Maybe
But
what
you know,
Anne is trying to say is that she would cook while drinking it.
exactly, absolutely, absolutely. That's it.
Perhaps. Okay, so I've got a question, and from Sushma, which relates to what we're talking about. Which is the dish which you recommend the wine? Which is the dish where you recommend the wines can be added and basically, what cheese would you recommend with
Oh,
Chablis?
with the Chablis, you can go for fresh goat cheese. That's perfect because the fresh cheese is not too strong in taste. But we also eat Comté. You know Comté? It's a hard
Comté, yeah.
cheese.
Mhm.
And you can try even a 24-month or 30-month. That because it's very salty, so it's a good pairing because it will reveal more, enhance the fruitiness of the wine because of the
Sure.
saltiness. So no, it's
Feta also.
Comté. Comté is a good
Yeah.
one too. We produce Époisse when it's fresh. Époisse, it's gonna be tricky. It can be very strong in taste, but if it's a fresh one, you can also have it with some Chablis.
You can
And
also pair it with feta.
oh yeah,
That's
absolutely.
salty. Yes.
And you can do it, but in this case, you can even though have a stronger wine. I mean, not only a Chablis, but maybe a Premier Cru a little bit rounder, something, we will balance the saltiness of the cheese. Absolutely.
Perfect. And we have a question from Ananya. She's asking, does Cru Classé represents only terroir or also the pressing of the grapes?
No,
Would you
it's
like to answer?
only due to the location. It doesn't, and actually, cru classé, it's not a term that we use in Bourgogne. It's more Bordeaux way. We say
Bordeaux.
either premier cru or grand cru, and again, it's mainly exclusively designating a parcel, a plot. It's not the way we prep the
Yes.
wine. It's really where it comes from.
Yes. So Ananya, like Anne is saying, the classification of the appellations is done on the basis of terroir,
Mhm.
on the basis of where the vineyard is located. And Cru Classé as a classification or the term is used in Bordeaux. And just FYI, Cru means growth, right, Anne? If I'm not mistaken.
Cru? Oh, yeah, well,
Cru?
yes, in French you're all right, mean cru, but in this case it doesn't mean crude.
Yeah,
It's nothing
yeah,
to do. But
yeah,
you're right, it's the same
yeah,
word. Absolutely, yes, it is the same word.
absolutely. Perfect. So we have another question. Does the region Chablis has the situation of soil erosion? And if it does, then does it make any change? As the soil from upper levels of land will be going to the low-lying areas? This is a question from Riti.
Well, not so far. We don't talk about erosion here. So maybe because, you know, by being planted with vines, the roots keep the land in its place. And furthermore, it's a very stony, so that doesn't move that much. It moved million years ago when, you know, you get the tectonic plaques that was just went one to each other and crushed. But since then, it hasn't moved, and it's not supposed to move the way it does on the seaside, for example.
Yes, absolutely. We have a question from Varun. Which month is best for growing grapes in Chablis for wines, or is it all 12 months?
Oh no, it is 12 months. Each month has it's useless. I mean, it is used for something, and it has its specificity. Actually, when we talk about our work, our activity, we say that it's the harvest. It's the most important time of the year for us because it represents the final of 11 months of work. And when you concretize it with the harvest in September, or well, this year it was in end of August, but no, each month is important because normally
Absolutely.
in winter the vine rests, and so she tends to be in hibernation, if we can say, and then in bloom again, and so on and so on. So on every month is important for us.
Sure. Yes. Another very interesting question is from Jishnujit. Chablis has seafood hint. I think what he means is fossil. So it can be paired with seafood, but can it be paired with dessert as well?
Well, dessert is very tricky. I would rather go with champagne with a dessert, I think, because the sweetness of a dessert, it's difficult to pair with Chablis. But you know what? Recently, we met a chocolate producer, and he makes very unique chocolates, and those can go with Chablis because he makes chocolates that are not sweet, but you tend to have all the cacao notes and everything, and that can be a nice pairing. So I would reserve my answer on that. But honestly, all things that are very sweet are not a very good combination with Chablis. I would try not to.
Or probably a dessert which is not very sweet. You know, you could go in for desserts which are citric in nature. Like I remember about a year or two back, I did a wine dinner and we did pair a Chablis. It was actually an experiment which came out well. We paired a Chablis. It was a petit Chablis. We paired it with a dessert which was, I think it was a lemon panna cotta. So since there was a lot of flavors of lemon, it was perfect. It wasn't really a very perfect match. Yes, but it was pleasing. It didn't leave the heavy notes of the panna cotta, which is an Italian dessert. It was a pleasant dessert.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think you have to try. Of course, there are some matching or food pairing that are not good at all, and you know it in advance and you won't try. But I agree with you. Sometimes it's interesting to taste and to know what pleases you and what can be done. I mean, it's not written in the marble, as we said in French. So you can just make experiments.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, great. Do we have Kunal? Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So is there a varietal of Marc that's known in Chablis in Burgundy?
No, we have Marc de Bourgogne.
Marc de Bourgogne.
Yes, that's the same thing. Yes,
one.
we don't have Marc de Chablis. It's only Marc de Bourgogne, which is more generic. Yes.
So because I know in Champagne it's what is it, Ratafi, or was it distilled? I'm not.
Fine de Champagne.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, no. It's for us. It's Marc de Bourgogne.
Marc is very generic, And I don't think there is any particular grape varietal, it's a very
No.
generic term.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
with the experts, yeah.
And if I would like to ask you one question. If somebody is in the world of wine, how does that one person understand whether they would like whether as per their palate would they like a Chablis, would they like a Côte d'Or, or would they like a Macanoy? Because all three regions are extremely different expressions.
I agree with you. I don't know, I mean, they are very different, but they can be complementary in the way that, okay.
Okay, somebody.
Hello again, that's okay. I think they're very complementary though, because Chablis will be perfect. Again, we tend to go with seafood, seashell, fishes, white meat, for example, and then Macon is a little bit rounder because what you were explaining earlier, they also produce Chardonnay, but it's a warmer area. So you would tend to have warmer and rounder wines. So they will go maybe more with more meat,
butter,
or more buttery, something a little stronger. And then of course the higher Bâtard Montrachet and so on. Those require more stronger, more complex, maybe more refined dishes or whatsoever. But I think you can like all of them. It depends with what you will pair them on, when you will drink them as well. Because for example, on a very warm day and bright, and like the weather you can have in India, for example, it's so refreshing to have a glass of Petit Chablis and a glass of Chablis while having a glass of Bâtard Montrachet will be heavy on the palate and so on. So it really depends on when and where and with what you drink it.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. I think no. So and I had a question. So as far as Petit Chablis, Chablis, Premier Cru, Grand Cru is concerned, so what would be your favorite food pairing with each of them?
Well, again, for Petit Chablis, I think it can be drunk by itself. It's really a aperitif wine, something that should open your palate and refresh it and prepare your palate for the rest of the food and of the dinner or lunch, whatever. But while Chablis, I will go more into smoked salmon. Again, something fresh, not too heavy in taste, but more structured somewhere. And then Premier Cru, you can have either poultry, some creamy sauce. For example, Vaillant is perfect with chicken with a creamy sauce and morels, the mushrooms. And on the contrary, Voligno, that tend to be a little bit stricter and more light. We will go for seafood. We will go to lobster, for example. And then Grand Cru. These are wine that can, go with maybe more complex dish and richer dish. With again
cheese-filled.
Cheese, perfect.
Cheese-filled gougères.
Les gougères, absolument. Les gougères with Petit Chablis, that's perfect. With Chablis, les gougères, it's a top. And actually, we have every Sunday, we have gougères, I have to say.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
For all our audience, gougère, if I had to say, is a French version of samosa. How we have in India samosas, they have gougères. So yeah, it's since it's a little bit oily, it's heavier. So the crispiness of the wine of Chablis just washes away that heaviness, and it just lets the refreshing taste and the character let it be there with the taste of the food, like how we like it. Oh my God, my mouth is salivating already.
Yes, I'm feeling hungry now, even though it's for tea time for us, but.
So and there's one question from the Facebook Live is that I think I know the answer to this. In Chablis, there is no screw cap. It's only cork, correct?
Oh no! You can have both. Actually, we for instance at Domaine Moreau, we produce. We sell. 60% of our Petit Chablis and Chablis are with screw cap.
Petit Chablis and Chablis is screw cap.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And then the rest is in cork. We use diam cork, which are not synthetic, not at all, but I mean, they're washed and reconstructed, if you can say, cork. And since then, we never had any more corked problem, NTCA and so on. So we are very happy with that. But we use natural cork only for the Grand Crus. We use very quite expensive, but very strict and very good quality cork, which is more and more difficult to find actually. But yeah, but no, we do screw cap quite a lot. And honestly, even if I could make some premier cru for countries such as Australia, for example, they ask for screw cap.
They ask for it. Yes, they ask for it.
Don't mind. They have no problem with that. So
okay.
cheap wine.
There's one question. Are you importing to, you know, is in Canada? Are you exporting to Canada? Somebody wants to know.
Well, yes, we do have an importer in Canada. In Toronto, actually, we work with Artisanal Wine. Company name, I don't know if you know. Oh, Abid, you're the one who asked for. Okay, do you know them? I don't know. It's Artisanal Wine. We work with them.
Yes, I have heard about it while studying about all the business and stuff. I have heard about them, the artisanal. Okay, sure. Then I'm gonna check because in here, like I believe the alcohol trade practice is probably tighter than any other country or city because it's monopolistically sold.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
Liquor license board of Ontario, I know even you guys face a lot of problem dealing with them. It's like they order at a different time.
Abhi, let's keep this for another session. We're focusing more on Chablis.
Yeah, sure. It's hard to get stuff over here.
So, and would you have like how they always say that wine has a lot of story. Wine has a lot of stories about war, romance, history, culture. Does Chablis have some traditional stories like Bordeaux has, or Côte d'Or has, or does Chablis in particular have any historical stories that we could always remember? Or
as I know, well, you know, we've been here for almost 2,000 years, and somewhere I would say that's history too, because and the vineyards were planted by the monks, and for us it was very important. And so yeah, we have a very long tradition and history with the monks and with the church here. It's very important in Chablis, and yeah, that were more or less that would be the more story I can tell about. I have no more. No, we've been. Our first wines were served on the royal tables because, you know, being close to a river, Le Serein goes into Lyon and the river Yonne goes into La Seine. And so therefore the wines were shipped to the king tables for many, many years, since the 14th century.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And it's been by tradition. Chablis has also been serving its wine on the king's table, which is we can be proud of.
Right. I'm getting 1 or 2 messages on my personal WhatsApp. They're asking, how do we know what the taste of Chablis is? Would you like to answer that, Anne?
How do we know the taste? Well, it will be, I mean, dry in the way that it's not sweet, but it's very aromatic. You tend to have flowers, white flowers notes, honeysuckle as well. You could have a little bit of licorice notes sometimes. Again, it's a very, very delicate aroma. It's not a strong wine. Chablis wines are very delicate, very pure, and so you will get this combination between the minerality we were mentioning earlier, you know, seafood and a little bit of iodine notes. That is very typical of Chablis, but balanced with white flowers again, and something again quite delicate.
Yes. Absolutely. And just to add to it, in my initial time when I was understanding wines, I would always hear this 2-3 phrases which would be used for Chablis: steely, crispy. And I would say to myself, what does it mean? That's when I was told by one of my teachers who's a master sommelier. He said that, Kriti, I want you to taste a coin. Just keep a coin on your palate for like 2 or 3 seconds. The taste that you get then is what steely character is, and that's the taste that you will only get in a Chablis wine. And I'm saying it in a pleasing manner, not saying
no. I agree. You're right. Sometimes we feel that, when the smell, when a hot stone gets
yes
red on it, it's kind of very, again, steely. I agree with you, and it's not negative for us. It's very, as you say, it's very classic and very
absolutely
it's very Chablis style, no matter what.
And that's the characteristic of, that's one of the characteristics of Chablis, which makes it so unique. That steeliness, that minerality that Chablis has, you probably would not get in Chardonnay. The expression of Chablis is nowhere else. You'll get.
Very salivary, you tend to have a salivary when you taste it. It's maturing, we say. I think
yes, crunchy. Yes. Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. Great.
Okay.
Wow.
Good.
Do we have any questions? I don't see any more questions. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, please do ask.
Someone is asking if there are no red or rosé wines at all in the whole region. Well, in Chablis, no. But as we were saying earlier, in Irancy, for example, they do red. And
yes. So Sushma, to answer your question, like Anne said, in the region of Chablis, you are allowed to make Pinot Noir, but the classification for that is Irancy in Saint-Brie. But the Chablis as a classification, there is nothing else allowed but the king of the white grape called Chardonnay. Yes, I think Varun has a question. Please, Varun.
Hi, Anne. I'm from a university. And thank you very much, first of all, for spending almost 2 hours with my students and Kunal sir for organizing all this. So the thing is that if I look forward to take my students to your region for maybe 10 days wine learning session, so do you have any package, or you organize anything like this?
You should go, you could contact the BIVB, the Bourgogne Wine Board. They work closely with a learning school called the CITV, and they organize classes and tastings and so on. So please don't hesitate to contact them. They can.
I have a simpler way, Varun. I have a simpler way. You could contact Kunal or myself. We both will be more than happy to organize such tours.
I was going to say, it'll be much simpler that way.
Probably, yes. The first step will be on your side, and then you contact them on the other side of the option.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I will be happy to welcome you if you come over.
We'll be more than happy to do the same, but we're just waiting for Mr. Corona to exit the world. We're waiting for it to get harvested and how.
I have just one last question, and I think for the audience, of course, this is a hypothetical question. Obviously, there's no right answer for this. So if somebody wants to consume all the 4, whether it's Petit Chablis, Chablis, Premier Cru, Grand Cru, so what is the recommended aging or keeping time? I mean, which one would you drink now? Which one would you drink probably in 6 months? Which one would you keep? What would be your? Of course, that really depends on the vintage.
You're right.
But what's your take on it?
Frankly, the scales of the pyramid reflect the time you will keep them. Meaning that Petit Chablis can be drunk within a year. Or more or less 8 months to a year after his harvest, and you can keep them 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I would say max. Sometimes you can have again, as you say, depending on the vintage, you can have good surprises and keep them longer. But normally, Petit Chablis are drunk within a year and up to 3 years. One on Chablis, you can go from 2 to 5 to 7 years. Premier Cru, surprisingly, you can have them. You need to wait a little bit longer. For example, at the winery, we are in 2021 now, but I mean, 2020, we were selling vintages 2018 and 2017. And we just started 18 at the end of this year. You know, we wait 18 to 2 years, 18 months to 2 years before releasing the wines. And you can keep them 8, 12, even 15 years in good vintages. When we get to the Grand Cru, you have to wait at least, for me, in my opinion, you have to wait at least 5 years before tasting them, because before that, you will find the wine is pleasant, the wine is nice, but you could be disappointed by a Grand Cru, expecting, because it's a Grand Cru, you expect the best of the cream, the best of the best, which is normal. But so you have to wait at least 5 years, and then you can keep them 30, 35 years with no problem. Whites, people think that wines cannot be kept, but it's no. I think you can store them with no problem. But again, depending on the vintage.
I have a 2010 Blanchot, so that I still need to wait
That was
another
a
10 years for that.
No, you can drink them now, but I
No.
mean, but if you wait for them, they will be good. They will still be very good. But 10 was brilliant.
I wanted to have this, but I'll wait. I'll wait.
No,
I'll
Kunal,
wait.
what?
I'll wait for
No,
Kriti.
No, you have to drink it with
Yes.
Kriti. You have to-
Yes, absolutely. Only then you will be able to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yes. That's something you have to share. You know, wines is to be shared. Something you share
Absolutely.
with friends,
Absolutely.
family.
Sharing
So
the
you can
pair.
give them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Do we have any
Bravo.
questions?
I think everybody's thinking about having a Chablis right now.
Well, you know what? Look, what is waiting for me here? I just have a simple Chablis, but I think, it's a
Oh,
2018. And it's
Bravo.
Salivating. Salivating.
very good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
I think that looks like a wrap to me. If there are not any more questions, well, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for joining in, taking out your time for this wonderful session by Anne. A very informative session. Certain things even I was not aware of, which she has told us, and obviously taking out almost 2 hours from everybody's schedule. Everybody's working or doing something. So thank you for joining us. Number one, we'll be bringing more of these wonderful sessions going ahead. Of course, that's going to be a surprise. We'll not tell you what it is going to be, just like we did not tell you which session is going to be today. We are, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are a WSET program provider. We provide level 1 and level 2 in wine. So if everybody is interested, do get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to help. Second of all, I would like to thank my co-host, beautiful Kriti Malhotra, and the very knowledgeable Kriti Malhotra. Thank you very much, Kriti, for joining. This bottle we'll have together for sure. That's my promise to you. And
we are testimony, so we know
absolutely. And this is all on record, so don't worry. I'm not going to turn back. And of course, last but not the least, the lovely Anne Moreau. Thank you very much, Anne, for taking out the time and opening our eyes to Chablis. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you. Kriti, it was a pleasure meeting you. I look forward to welcoming you in Chablis whenever you want. It would be really a pleasure. Kunal, again, I will be happy to see you again. So,
absolutely. Let this all finish.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely be coming to France and of course to your
Mhm.
place. I've seen you redecorated and I think renovated the wine tasting room and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's all brand new, so you have to
Yeah.
come and visit the new place.
absolutely. I will. I'm
Absolutely.
running low on my Chablis stock, so I need to replenish.
Thank you.
No, I
It was
would
very well.
like to please, Sushma, please go ahead.
No. It was a very wonderful session, well explained by Kriti as usual. Kunal, thank you. And Annie, you were also very good. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you so much.
I mean, I just want to say one thing, and as sommeliers or as wine professionals, we've read, we've studied, we've tasted, but I think you just opened our eyes to so many more things. Like I knew about left bank and right bank, sun rising, sun setting, the first sun rays, but you touched on such important points that it'll just make me go back to my books again. I would want to read it again. That the whole concept of understanding and then tasting. So I mean, excellent. Thank you so very much.
Oh, my
And
pleasure, really, really.
it was an excellent session, eye-opening session for Chablis, for all the people who don't know much, who know a little bit, and for people like us who know nothing about Chablis, we understood a
Yes,
lot from you. So
Katie, you're very humble because I'm sure you know a lot, and I could see that you know a lot. So, but I mean, I was very pleased to share this webinar with you guys. And if you have questions, please just call me. Give me a call, and so we can discuss together before you come to Chablis.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
I'm just
And
writing.
thank you, Kunal. Kunal,
My
thank
pleasure.
you for
My
making me
pleasure.
a part of it. Gratitude.
My pleasure. I'm just going to put this email address in the chat box. So please do mail me with your name, full name, and I will issue a participation certificate as well. That's the email that I've just sent in the chat. And I will issue the certificate maybe in a couple of days. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Kriti. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I will hopefully see you in happier times, healthier times. And we will soon meet for sure.
Thank you. I will look forward to it. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, save water and drink wine.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Au revoir.